Pinball circuit activated.
Welcome to Xenon.
Hey YouTubes, back in the workshop. Today we're hopefully going to finish the Xenon playfield, get everything on it. Fingers crossed, get it off the rotisserie and finish up the cabinet on the game, and maybe try and get the playfield back in the cabinet tomorrow. And then if we have any luck, see if we can get it to fire up and not blow up. So let's get going. All right, this ramp is the biggest pain in the ass on Xenon. So this is what I think is the correct spacer orientation. Now, I will say that I've looked on Pinside and other people have slightly different measurements on these posts. So take this with a grain of salt. But these posts here are 1 1/4 inches. And they're both the same. Now, I've seen some people say this one should be slightly taller, like 1 3/16. You could put a washer on top of it if you want. I may do that depending on how the game plays. I don't know that it's going to be a problem for that to be flat and level, but you might want a little bit of an angle because this thing's going to curve around. This guy here, I made custom because there wasn't one here and it was missing. This is 1 inch. Now there's 2 here, and I'll just take measurements here real quick. Okay, the bigger one is 5/8. All right, and that goes on the inside here. And then there's a smaller one that is 3/8. And that one goes here. And then there's 2 screws that go flush to the playfield here. Now, there's a post that goes right here, and make sure you remove this post before you put this ramp in, because otherwise it'll hit. And what I'm gonna probably do is take my Dremel and just grind down the very bottom of this post so it sits flush, because otherwise it hits that ramp where it's sitting. So it sits right there is where the post goes. So that is my configuration for now. I reserve the right to change it once I get the tube on and figure out exactly how everything lines up. Oh, also, don't forget that nail right there. It's important. So that nail goes there. I put that in before everything. And then I got to figure out what that's for. Have not figured that out yet, but I'm going to figure that out next. The issue that we have here is that this post is supposed to have a metal bar that sits across here and gives the tube something to sit on, so it doesn't rest on this wire guide that's still loose. I haven't put that in yet because I'm still messing with it. And that metal post is missing on this game. I went back and looked at my before pictures, and in fact it was missing. So I'm going to see if I can fabricate one. Let me grab the metal bar in question. So what I have is, this is a piece that usually is inside the cabinet that the coin box goes into, and you can put a lock up here at the top to lock your coin box up. And I don't usually put these into machines, so I have a bunch of them. So what I'm going to try and do is use this bar stock, this piece, and cut out a metal bar from this section here, and then fashion something to go from here to here and replace that bar that's missing. So we'll see how that goes. Notice that there are no lights in here. I might stick a couple bulbs in there and put some sockets in, and put some bulbs in just to brighten it up here a little bit. Haven't decided yet, but that's on the original playfields. This is not drilled out, and on the reproductions it is. So you can stick some lights in there and extend your GI if you want to, and I'm probably going to do that just for fun. But so then all of this mess, right? So this goes here. That's a screw, and then this side here is a machine screw that goes into a blind nut, and those are both equal sized. There's another post that goes here, and then you have two little posts that go here, and then this screws into the playfield. And this whole ramp has to torque a little bit to get to work in. So I'm gonna try putting it in from the top down to the bottom, and we'll see how that works. Tube is in. Here is what I ended up with after a lot of trial and error. Okay, so here's the custom support I made. Now fits. There is a white 1-inch spacer, regular standard spacer there on that one. On the back, it is a gray, and I believe this is 1 1/4 inch spacer. And I actually replaced this originally on the games. This is a number 6 3-inch screw, which none of the big box stores have. And on the other Xenon they did as well. They're so hard to get in and out that they strip. So I drilled this out. I put a blind nut on the bottom, and this is now a threaded machine screw. So that's much easier to get in and out. And if you look over here, we have a tall, again, I believe that's 1 1/4, something like that, spacer. And then that hooks in to the actual strip, and then it goes around the front. Now the important other thing is you have to have on the inside, let me show you the inside real quick, those little tines all have to be on the inside of that tube. So make sure when you install it that it's on the inside of the tube there. I think this area is my least favorite part of the whole freaking game. I went ahead and installed this pop bumper because it's impossible, well, it's hard to get to that screw with all this in. And also make sure that you at least have that rubber in place. This is gonna be where the spinner bracket's gonna go on, so I haven't installed this rubber yet, but it's just hanging out on this little post. That's gonna go around there when it's done. And you can see there's a little bit of play here, but that's not bad actually. That'll be fine coming down into this area. There's a little bumper, metal bumper piece that goes there that I still have to put in. So I'm gonna keep going. Spinners. So what I do with spinners is I strip off the paint, original paint, and then I paint them with an epoxy enamel. And I got new decals for this one. And then what I do is I take a little piece of packing tape and I put it on the bottom piece, because if you don't, this stuff will chip pretty quickly as you start hitting it with the ball. And that was actually a tip that a friend of mine gave me. That's what he does. And you don't really notice it when it's on the game, but it does provide another little layer of protection. I guess you could use Mylar as well if you wanted to, but I just use packing tape. There you go. I hate this ramp. Okay. First of all, make sure you install that screw on this rail first. Okay? Because if you get the ramp in place, you can't get to that screw to screw it in. Now, looking at what we have here, okay, and I'm going to put a little measuring tape there. Okay, this is what I've got. I'm not saying this is absolutely correct. This is what seems to work on this machine. It's the second Xenon I've done, and these spacers are always all over the place. So the smallest one that I have is 3/8 of an inch. The next one up, is 5/8. Then we have 2 that are 1 1/4 and 1 that is 1 1/2. Now, these 2 big dudes over here are supposed to be 2 inches, and they've got spacers on them for that reason. And then this one, and there's another one that goes over here for the tube. Those are, I'll get it real quick. What is this? That is 1 5/8. Right? Yeah, 1 5/8. So, I mean, these posts are kind of crazy. The way they work is these 2 go at where the ramp enters the tube. So the end of the ramp. Over here, they go right there. This one goes on the inside of the ramp, right there. The shortest one goes here into the hole that's right next to, you can see it there, right next to that metal guide. And then these 2 guys just screw down to the playfield. Now, I'll point out that this hole is not in the CPR playfields. So I drilled it because I like to have this screw here, and it was in the original playfield, so I don't know. Make sure you put this rubber on first and get it correct. It goes around and then in a triangle underneath there. You can see that. The manual actually shows it looping around this, this guy here, right here. But I don't see how that can work, because this is what, there's a plastic shielding that goes over this switch to pretty it up. And every time you change the switch, you have to take this out, which would mean your rubber would pop out. You have to reach under there, pull it back, put the thing down. I think it's a pain in the butt. So I'm just gonna leave it in the triangle shape like this. So I'm gonna screw this thing down. Hopefully, this is the last time I take this ramp off. So just wanted to show how I did this. You can see I dremeled out the back end of that post so it doesn't, you can see, I don't know the focus, come on. You can see where, if I didn't do that, it would have hit right there, and then that little lip doesn't sit flush. So, all right, so you've got your 2 screws here, longer post there, shorter post down there. Okay, I did have to trim this one a little bit, so that is not, I believe I said it was 1 1/2. It's a little shorter than that, just to make it to where it wasn't too tall, because if you make it too tall, you get too much of a gap right there, and this piece starts to really ride up and have a big gap there. So there's the front of it, and I'm hoping that that's going to be correct once I get the tube in. We'll see. Just going to show you what I've done here so far. There's our ramp installed. Yay. I put in these gates here and here. And then I put in the little ball guides for this side, because I want to start building up over here and get this whole ramp, this exit from the tube built out. So here's the issue. This rail was bowed out just a little, and it wasn't sitting very flush on the edge of the playfield here. So, and that was, so there's an issue in the way they put this thing together. So this is the bottom of the ramp, and it sits in there like that. Now, I've made a modification here in that, I'm gonna show you. I have dremeled off the corner there. And that is because if you don't, you have 2 options. One is you raise this up, you stick that corner under, and it sticks underneath, which looks crappy. Or this bows out a little bit. So I just dremeled it off so that it sits in there well, because you want it to sit straight so that it'll ramp down and hit where it's supposed to hit. So I just dremeled that a little bit just to make it to where it'll now sit with its area correct and sit flush on that wall. And so that's done. So I will install that. I've also, take you underneath the playfield real quick. I've also, if you can look here, I have put screws all down the playfield, which is what Bally should have done in the first place, but they didn't. So just, there's already holes pre-drilled in the playfield. And the funny thing is those same holes are in the original playfield, they just weren't used. So just screw it in with regular screws to make your life easier later on down the road. All right, this is where you learn from my mistakes. So there's an order you have to do things over here. So you need to put this piece in first. This is the metal piece where the tube comes in right here and it forms a little backstop for the ball. If you don't put this piece in first, when you install this piece, you're going to put it in the wrong hole and drill out the wrong hole because the holes on this playfield are not correct. Okay, so what you have to do is get it in there correctly like this. And then come over here, and what you'll find is that the hole that originally looked like it was too far out is actually correct. And then what you can do, once you get it lined up, is drill your holes. So now what you see what happened here is the holes that I've got drilled previously are wrong. So what I've done is I put some toothpicks in there with some wood glue. I'm gonna let that dry overnight, and I will re-drill that out correctly and we'll install it. Oops.